the Ordinary Council meeting for the month of November 2023 open at 19:04 hours. I'd also like to acknowledge past councillors that are in the audience again tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge that the meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Noongar people and paid my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I need to advise all members present tonight that this meeting will be audio recorded in accordance with our council policy. If you're asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will also be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recordings of this meeting is allowed. Apologies. We've got one apology from Councillor Morgan Bias. Public question time 2.1. Responses to previous public questions taken on notice. Ordinary Council meeting on Monday, the 16th of October 2023. As per the agenda, a question was provided or asked by Mrs. Bond, and the answer has been submitted to her. There was a question asked by Mr. Nathan Bishop at the same Ordinary Council meeting on Monday, the 16th of October. Correspondence was sent to Mr. Bishop on Thursday, the 26th of October 2023. Mr. Gary Tomlinson also asked questions at the Ordinary Council meeting on Monday, the 16th of October 2023, and correspondence was sent to Mr. Tomlinson on Thursday, the 26th of October 2023. There was a question asked by Mr. Steve Rossanthan at the Ordinary Council meeting on Monday, the 16th of October 2023, and an answer has been provided. Item 2.2 is public questions. Public question time will commence at 7:05 p.m. and I ask Ms. Lisa Brazier of Munijong to come forward and ask her question.
Good evening, councillors. Lisa Brazier, PO Box 80, Munijong. My first question is that I noticed that we still have the official portrait of Queen Elizabeth II hanging in the council chambers. While she passed on the 8th of September 2022 and King Charles's coronation took place on the 6th of May 2023, would I be correct in assuming that the King's official portrait for Australia has not yet been approved and as such has not been issued by the Governor-General's Department to date, and that's why we still have her on the wall?
Thank you, Ms. Brazier, for the question. I'll answer the question because I have asked the same question previously. Officers have been in regular communication with the Commonwealth Government to ensure that the portraits on display in the chambers are consistent with protocol and are respectful. The Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet's advice on their website, which is consistent with the verbal advice that representatives from the Commonwealth have provided to officers, and that statement says, while a photograph of His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen Consort was recently unveiled, an official Australian portrait of the King will also be released at a later date. The Australian portrait will be announced in due course and distributed through federal MPs and senators via the Nationhood Material Program. In the interim, portraits of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II may be continued to be displayed. This is distinct from the advice regarding the portrait of the King provided to local governments for their use in Australian citizenship ceremonies. In this case, the Commonwealth Government has been very specific in the instruction that the King's portrait supplied to us is to be used only for Australian citizenship ceremonies and no other purpose. When officers queried this advice and accepted the protocol for displaying images in official buildings, officers were directed to the Prime Minister Cabinet website and its advice that the portraits of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II may continue to be displayed. The Commonwealth Government has further advised that if a council no longer wishes to display the portrait, it may either be placed in a permanent place of storage or should be destroyed privately in a dignified way, similar to the way of the Australian national flag. This includes any images of Her Majesty, whether a framed portrait or on a banner. Of these options, officers consider it most appropriate to continue to display the image until the official portrait has been distributed through our local federal MP and senators via the Nationhood Material Program. Would you like to ask your second question?
Thank you. These council chambers sit in the old Munijong Community Hall, of which in the entrance hangs the state-listed Munijong honour rolls from the World Wars, and across the road from the Mundijong War Memorial and the Anzac Wall. Yet when looking on the Shire's website and Facebook page, I could find no information of the official RSL Remembrance Day service, an event I was to attend, something the Shire has previously supported. Why was it there was no information?
Thank you for your second question, Ms. Brazier. I'll ask the Director of Community Engagement to answer.
Remembrance Day services are organised by the Serpentine Jarrahdale RSL. At this event in 2023, the Shire organised and paid for a wreath to be laid at the service by the President on behalf of the Shire. The Shire acknowledged the importance of this day with a social media post on our Facebook page on the 11th of November and tagged the local RSL Facebook page in that post. The Shire also published a media release post the Remembrance Day event on Monday the 13th of November to acknowledge the service held in Byford and highlight the importance of this commemorative day.
Thank you, Director, and I ask you, Ms. Brazier, to ask your third question.
The SJRSL was formed around 2005, and since then it's conducted both the Dawn Service and the Remembrance Day service, both of which the Shire has traditionally been part of. Remembrance Day is dedicated to those soldiers who gave up their lives fighting to protect our nation and allow us the freedom and the democracy we enjoy today. Does the Shire have an issue with the local RSL because not supporting it in promoting the details of these commemorative days to the community certainly doesn't seem to fit your values of we do the right thing and we work as a team?
Thank you for your third question, Ms. Brazier. I again ask the Director of Community Engagement to answer the question.
We believe that we have a positive working relationship with the Serpentine Jarrahdale RSL, and over recent years we've worked collaboratively to deliver our respective Anzac Day services at the same location. This occurred this year with the RSL delivering their dawn service at the Mundijong War Memorial, followed by the Shire delivering our Anzac Day community service at the same location. This allowed for the sharing of resources to reduce costs, reduce the work required from volunteers and ensure recognition for our servicemen and women. Council considered a report for this year's event in February, and a subsequent report is scheduled to be presented to Council next month for the 2024 service arrangements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brazier. It is 10 minutes past 7, so I'll open the floor to anyone who would like to come forward and ask a question without notice. Thank you, Mrs. Bond.
What qualifications, knowledge or requirements does a firebreak inspector require before being appointed to the position for the Shire?
Thank you for the question, Mrs. Bond. I'll ask the Director for Community Engagement to answer, or the Director for Infrastructure.
Mr. President, with due respect, we'd like to take the question on notice so we can provide an accurate answer to Mrs. Bond, if that's okay.
Thank you. The question will be taken on notice. Mrs. Bond will provide an answer.
What requirements are there for cooperation of fire management with regard to the Shire, police, local fire brigades and DFIS, since a recent barbecue suggested police and rangers were part of the awareness information was provided, and yet all this failed on the 4th of November 2023?
Thank you, Mrs. Bond. Again, we'll take that question on notice.
What is the demountable parked at the animal incarceration point in the Shire being used for, and what did it cost?
Thank you for the third question, Mrs. Bond. Again, we'll take that question on notice and provide an answer in due course. Ms. Lowe, would you like to ask your question?
Fiona Lowe, 64 to 66 Bannister Road, Canada. First question, have the damaged walls in the rec centre basketball courts been repaired, replaced? And the second question is, what is the current status in the maintenance of bridges and drains in the northwest?
Thank you for your questions. Mrs. Lowe, we'll take both of those questions on notice and answer will be provided to you in due course. Are there other members of the gallery who like to come forward and ask a question? Mr Denham.
Yeah, question regarding drainage, just start my thing. Where's the drainage material being put now if Watkins Road has been closed as storage for the drainage material being dug out? Thanks.
I thank you for your question, Mr Denham. We'll take that on notice and provide an answer in due course.
Will the President answer that question, Mr. President?
I'll thank you, Director of Infrastructure Services.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Denham. Since the closure of the waste transfer station, drainage waste is going to Webb Road Reserve.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other questions that any member would like to come forward and ask? That being the case, public question time is concluded at 7:14 p.m. Public statement time. I ask Ms Kelly Berry from BIFE to come forward and make her statement.
I stood here at the April 23 OCM and asked what the Shire was going to do to protect its staff at this year's election, based on Councillor Rob Cole's bullying and aggressive behaviour towards a Shire officer at last year's fresh election. Councillor Duggan then put forward a motion at that meeting, supported by Councillor Coles, to have that same Shire officer's workplace as a pre-polling place. Well done, councillors, for putting your staff at the same position as last year. Did anything happen at this year's pre-polling? Yes, it did. Was it Councillor Rob Coles again? Yes, it was. If you look at Councillor Coles' Facebook page, he always posts a video of himself with the building in the background showing where he is pre-polling. On the Thursday before the election, Councillor Coles made a choice to take a video with myself and a Shire officer in the background having lunch. This Shire officer was on her lunch break and pre-polling hadn't even started. This was the same Shire officer that Rob Coles had an incident with last year. He then posted this video on his Facebook page. Was this a deliberate move? Absolutely, no doubt at all. I verbally told Rob Coles that neither myself nor the Shire officer consented to be in his political video and please remove it. His response was, "My lawyer told me not to engage with you." So I told him he should call his lawyer. I then sent Councillor Coles a text stating that neither of us consented to be in his video and to please remove it from Facebook. Put it in writing. He still moved and did not comply with that request. I then told him that he is in breach of Section 27 of the Surveillance Devices Act. The use of optical devices in a public interest requires consent. As a police officer, he should have known that. At this point, he finally removed it and replaced it with his usual video of the building in the background. This Shire failed in protecting its staff. Those councillors that supported that vote failed to support their staff. Councillor Duggan and Councillor Coles failed the staff in their own personal vendettas against that same Shire officer. Let this be a lesson learned for the Shire and the council. Stop having in-person voting at Shire workplaces. There are plenty of other places to have them. Don't fail your staff again. You will lose them. Let's hope Rob Coles is a better Shire president than he was a police officer. Start showing respect for your staff, because if you want stuff done in the Shire, you need them around to do it.
Miss Berry, I will remind you of standing orders, and I will also remind you that against the standing orders, you cannot make personal attacks on councillors. I have allowed the statement, but I would remind you of the standing orders of the Shire, and I thank you very much for the statement. The second statement for tonight is Ms Daniela Marja from Urbanista Town Planning regarding item 10.1.5, retrospective motor vehicle repair and prospective additions at lot 234, number 10, Walters Road, Byford.
Good evening. My name is Daniela Merja from Urbanista Town Planning, and tonight I'm speaking in support of the officer's recommendation for approval of item 10.1.5. I'm here representing the landowner of 10 Walters Road, Byford. The existing motor vehicle repair business was started by the landowner during COVID as more of a hobby and to provide supplemental income stream for the family. Since commencement of his business, demand has steadily increased, which has evolved in the operation into a full-time business and become his primary source of income for his family. The application before us this evening provides a locally owned and run motor vehicle repairs business which serves the local community and employs one additional staff member. The premises undertakes servicing of light vehicles and does not involve any panel beating or spray painting services, which potentially could, it reduces the impact of it to adjacent properties. It is also important to note that the landowner and operator of the business lives on the property with his family. For this reason, ensuring that the site remains tidy and the operational impacts are minimised, and is also critically important to ensure a suitable level of amenity for the family's household. It is understood that the site is located in an area planned for transition towards a more residential context, as guided by the Stanley Road Precinct Local Structure Plan. At this time, there has been very little uptake in development towards this future vision, and therefore the business is able to continue operation within its existing context during this interim transitional period without impacting on the future vision of the structure plan area. Now, I understand that some concerns from neighbours have been raised with respect to noise. Considerable time and effort have gone into the investigation of noise impacts from the premises, including an acoustic assessment with recommendations on modifications to improve noise mitigation. As a result of this assessment, with recommendations, small-scale alterations and additions are proposed to the existing building, which will enable all works to be completed in an enclosed environment. This significantly mitigates the potential for noise impacts and will ensure future operations will not exceed the noise regulations. Now, we understand that the adjacent childcare premises is supportive of the business, and while some concerns have been raised by adjoining local residents, we are confident that these concerns will be addressed through measures outlined in this acoustic assessment, along with the management practices enforced through the noise management plan. In acknowledgement of the future vision of the structure plan area, we accept that permanent approval of the business may not be appropriate, and therefore respectfully request Council to support a time-limited approval of 5 years. This will enable the business to continue operation whilst the locality slowly transitions to a more denser residential context. We are supportive of the officer's recommendation, however, request one modification to Condition 8 relating to the Condition 8 Part G relating to the noise management plan. Part G of Condition 8 states that on receipt of any noise complaint, all operations of the business are to cease until the noise complaint has been investigated and rectified by the Shire. This is concerning for my client, as there is potential for aggrieved parties to lodge multiple unfounded noise complaints, each necessitating the business to cease operations. Depending on how long it takes for the Shire to investigate, the business could repeatedly be closed for extended periods of time, even if operating in accordance with its approval. It would be a case of guilty until found innocent. Nevertheless, subcondition G is unnecessary for the Shire to be able to investigate and undertake compliance action if they feel that they need to. Requiring this business to cease operation on receipt of any complaint is an unreasonable burden and open to being taken advantage of. For the reasons I've mentioned this evening, we respectfully request Council to approve the application subject to the removal of Condition 8G. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Are there any other statements that people would like to make from the floor? Thank you, Mrs. Bond.
It's about time that any group receiving any funding through the Shire provide a report to the Shire for public consumption, how the funding is spent. I also believe everyone should be paying rates. It is time that religious groups pay rates like everyone else. When developers want to put a lot of extras into housing developments, why should that burden impact on other ratepayers who will never benefit from it? Myself and many others don't ask everyone else to help pay for our electricity, and it is costly for us, for a lot of us, because every time we turn on a tap, our power bill increases.
Thank you for your statement, Mrs. Bond. Are there any other members of the Gallery who would like to come forward and make a statement? Being no further statements, I declare public statement time concluded at 7:24 p.m. Agenda item number 4 is petitions and deputations, and I believe there is a petition that's just been received, and I'll hand over to Councillor Bishop, who will talk to the petition he's received.
Yes, President Coles, there's been a petition received by Mr. Paul Spearing. The prayer of that petition is that Council not recommend the proposed educational establishment at lot 218575 Abernethy Road, Oakford. Also, we've received this petition quite last minute, but I believe there to be 47 petitioners. I'd like to move that the petition be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there a seconder for the petition to be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is anyone against the petition being accepted? There being no one against, then the petition is accepted unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Bishop.
Mr. President, it might be worthwhile just advising that Councillor Bishop has circulated that to all councillors for their information at 7:04 this evening.
Thank you. That brings us to deputations. We have received a deputation from Ms Kane from Dorrell Mineral Sands regarding item 10.1.1, proposed extension of extraction timeframe and amendment to approval area of extraction for mining operations at lot 63, 1265 Hopeland Road, Keysbrook. Thank you, Ms Kane.
I'm Geordie from Dorrell. Thank you, President Coles, councillors and staff for the opportunity to speak to you this evening in regard to agenda item 10.1.1 being Dorrell Mineral Sands Keysbrook extension. Dorrell is an experienced mineral sands company with over 20 years experience in the southwest, having acquired the Keysbrook site from MZI Resources in 2019. Dorrell requires an extension to the Keysbrook mine life and seeks development approval following recent EPA approval to relocate its current mining operations from lot 57 in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale to Dorrell-owned land being lot 63, 1265 Hopelands Road, and some of this which has previously been mined by MZI Resources. The Keysbrook site is located in both the Shire of Murray and the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. We anticipate Dorrell's current ore reserves remaining on lot 57 to be depleted by the end of the year, hence the requirement to relocate to lot 63 upon Shire approval. The company is seeking to extend its operations based on a two-stage approvals approach. This extension is critical to the future of the Keysbrook mine and will add a further 4 to 5 years to the operation whilst maintaining the employment of 75 local employees in addition to contractors, suppliers and other associated economic benefits. Stage 1 is focused on lot 63 and, if approved by council this evening, will extend the Keysbrook mining operations for a further 18 to 24 months. Stage 2 of the extension approvals will be a larger mining footprint to both the north and south of lot 63 and will add approximately a further 24 months to the project, which remains subject to a longer approvals timeframe. Significant community consultation has occurred in regard to lot 63, either through various landholder meetings, community updates and the recent Dorrell newsletters. No feedback has been received directly by Dorrell in regard to lot 63, and we will continue to ensure that our neighbours are regularly informed of all developments in this regard. Amenity agreements for lot 63 are secured for those neighbours within a 2-kilometre radius, with only one outstanding which remains in discussion. Dorrell is committed to operating to the most stringent environmental standards, with noise, dust and water the highest of priorities. Significant resources are in place to ensure compliance, which includes daytime mining only, dust suppression in high-risk months, pasture seed applied to exposed areas at risk of dust, noise mitigation on key items of equipment, real-time noise modelling through an alert system and a 24/7 contact number provided to closest neighbours. Subject to all approvals in place, Keysbrook will remain in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale locality for a further 4 to 5 years, in addition to the extensive rehabilitation program which follows. Approximately 60% of all land mined has now been rehabilitated to productive pasture. This is in addition to 139 hectares of native vegetation amounting to 500,000 seedlings, locally sourced and planted across the operations, utilising the services of Landcare SJ to assist in this process. Doral continues to fund worthy organisations through the Keysbrook Community Consultative Group, which has been operating for over 10 years and includes the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale Council, a representative to the group, which I believe is Deputy President Tricia Duggan. Key projects have included the Serpentine Food and Farm Fest, Byford Carols, the Keysbrook Volunteer Bushfire Brigade, Landcare SJ, Keysbrook Community Group, Mundijong Library, Serpentine Historical Society, Serpentine Jarrahdale Men's Shed, Lions Club of Serpentine Jarrahdale and others. We would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the planning team at the Shire, who have been really cooperative and supportive in working through the company's various approval requirements, which at times has changed based on access requirements. At Doral, we recognise the responsibility of operating in a small community. We remain committed to ensuring we are a good neighbour, the communities benefit from our presence, we actively reduce our impact on the environment, and our stakeholders are informed and engaged on important developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Kane. Can I please ask Mr Carlo Firmino from CF Town Planning Development regarding item 10.1.2, proposed recreation private gym and swim school at shop at lots 2 640 Southwest Highway, Byford. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, President, councillors and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My name's Carlo and I'm representing the landowner of this site. Firstly, we're very supportive of the recommendation made by the council staff for approval of this application. There's been a fair bit of work done on this site in regards to the design, layout, and addressing a whole heap of issues. So we thank the staff for their cooperation and obviously the time they spent communicating with us to get this right in the end. The site itself has been used as a service station for over 45 years. Recently, it's been used for a depot for main road, so it's been a bit of an eyesore and hasn't been developed to its full potential for a number of years. And given the fact that historically it was a service station, the site has been recognised as being a contaminated site and not fit or not prepared or ready for residential development at this stage. The proposed development in front of you tonight proposes a gym, a swim school and a shop. The gym and the swim school are certainly facilities that are there to service the community. Being that this site needs to be a commercial development or commercial type development, the uses that are proposed are something that the local community can use at any time. Once again, we're supportive of the recommendation of approval. Through the process of preparing this application and getting it to this meeting tonight, we made a number of changes which addressed some issues raised by the Shire staff, a number of issues raised by main roads. There were issues raised in regards to noise and acoustics. All of those have been addressed. And we certainly went through the list of submissions that were submitted to the council or to the Shire during the public advertising period. We certainly didn't ignore those comments. We went through them, made alterations and addressed as many of them as we could that were valid. Obviously, there are some submissions that weren't valid, so we addressed those. But we went and spent a fair bit of time trying to go through that process and make sure that we addressed all of the issues raised by the relevant parties. The planning framework itself, the site is within the Byford District Structure Plan area. There are a number of commercial uses, including the uses that are listed tonight as being uses that can be considered for the site. And the development itself has been designed in a manner which reflects the planning framework. The building itself has exposure to the streets, good passive surveillance and connectivity with the adjoining street network. It uses articulated facades through varying setbacks, use of materials, and something that is, I guess, at the end of the day, provides good appearance when you look at it from the street and it enhances the streetscape. The only thing that we request council to consider tonight is the deletion of condition number 11. Condition number 11 was a recommendation from the Department of Water Environment Regulations in regards to the contaminated site. The condition required that further studies were required in regards to the site. Unfortunately, the department didn't have the knowledge that it was a above ground swimming pool being proposed within this complex. They thought it was being dug into the ground 2 metres, which would have triggered an issue with contamination. We've spent the entire week talking to the department and given them that information, and they were certainly happy for that condition to be removed, and we've conveyed that to the Shire staff, and the department has actually contacted the Shire staff to confirm that that condition isn't required, given that we're not doing any excavation on the site, and it wouldn't have an issue with contamination. So to conclude, we're certainly supportive of the recommendation. We would request that that condition number 11 be removed, just so that we remove any additional paperwork and time lost on trying to get that ticked off, even though the department said they will tick it off anyway. And we would request council to favourably consider this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Firmino. I'd now like to ask Mr. Derek Swartz from the Free Reformed School Association regarding item 10.1.3, proposed educational establishment lot 218575 at the Nathy Road, Oakford, to come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. My name is Derek Swartz, and I'm honoured to serve as the CEO of the Free Reformed School Association. Tonight, I'm eager to share a brief introduction regarding a matter of great importance to us, specifically item 10.1.3, the proposed educational establishment, block 218 Abernethy Road, Oakford. The Free Reformed School Association was established in 1954. Is established and is dedicated to founding and managing schools for individuals who are either members of or aspire to be part of the Free Reformed churches. Our journey began in 1957 with a modest school of around 50 students in Armidale, which has since grown into our current middle and senior school campus with 370 students. Over the past 65 years, we've experienced substantial growth. We currently operate 5 schools, enrolling 1,000 plus students annually. The Byford John Calvin School, which was opened in 1998 and is situated at 30 Soldiers Road, currently enrolls approximately 230 students each. Our existing connection to the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale is significant and goes beyond just our schools. Presently, 4 affiliated churches within the Shire have a collective membership of approximately 1,300 individuals. As already shared in our application, it's our intention to relocate our existing secondary campus from Armidale to the new site in Oakford, along with the primary school site here in Byford, to ensure that our students have sufficient space to play and learn, so that we can accommodate the anticipated increase in student enrolment. The rationale behind the move is twofold. First of all, our existing facilities in both Byford and Armidale face limitations in expansion due to being landlocked and approaching maximum capacity. We are then left with the choice of duplicating our existing facilities or relocating them to a property with sufficient capacity for future growth. The Free Reformed School Association has explored the various merits of these 2 options. After years of planning and careful consideration, we've chosen to relocate our existing schools to the Oakford site. Secondly, our members are also relocating, demonstrating a preference for larger properties and residences. Over time, there's been a noticeable trend of our members moving south into Byford, Mundijong, Jarrahdale and beyond. We therefore see this site within your Shire to be centrally located for our membership, one that has the potential to serve our projected growth for up to the next 100 years. For us, decisions to relocate campuses do not occur very often. We see this development as a very significant opportunity. Regarding the timeline, our development application outlines a phased approach to building the school, with stage 1 focusing on the middle and senior schools, essentially years 7 through to 12, and stage 2 on the primary schools, kindergarten through to year 6. While our documentation proposes a 2028 opening for stage 1, we acknowledge that this is ambitious, particularly considering the project's size and complexity. Internally, we are working within a 5-year window for implementation, spanning from 2028 to 2032 for stage 1, 2032 to 2037 for stage 2. Today, based on the information that we have and making allowances for all the elements of the outstanding design and construction, we do consider it realistic that the secondary campus will commence construction prior to 2028 with an opening for staff and students on or around. Concluding, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the opportunity to share this very exciting development for us with yourselves. We've been part of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale for more than 25 years. We're excited at the prospect of becoming a larger part of this community for many years to come. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Swartz. Can I please ask Mr. David Reid from Element Advisory regarding item 10.1.3, proposed educational establishment lot 218 Abernethy Road, Oakford, to come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening also on agenda item 10.1.3, proposed educational establishment at lot 218 Abernethy Road, Oakford. My name's David Reid. I'm a town planning consultant at Element Advisory, here on behalf of my client, the Free Reform School Association. I'm here to speak in support of the officer's alternate recommendation for approval, subject to modifications previously circulated to you for your early consideration. As you've just heard, the application before council is the culmination of years of strategic work by our client to identify and secure a significant land holding within the Shire for this long-term community investment in private education. Whilst the application has been recommended for refusal based solely on infrastructure considerations, we believe we can continue to work with the Shire's planning staff on the imposition of reasonable conditions to allow for council to conditionally support this mandatory DAP application. The grounds for recommending refusal as presented within the agenda relate only to Abernethy Road roundabout and pedestrian footpaths. With regard to the Abernethy Road roundabout, the development application was lodged with the Shire on the 9th of August, when the roundabout was still fully funded and scheduled for delivery within the Shire's Hypergrowth Project 2025 funding period. However, due to delays experienced and the increase in cost to construct the roundabout, Council resolved at its meeting of the 16th of October to reallocate the funding for the construction of the roundabout. Vegetation clearing and the land acquisition process remained in the scope of works, though, to ensure the project is ready for construction, hopefully following securing of further funding in the lead up to the 2025 state election. The Abernethy Road roundabout construction obviously remains a priority infrastructure item for the Shire to deliver, as it's an existing black spot, and, as highlighted by Shire staff, Abernethy Road will become a major arterial road to Byford from Thomas Road, following the construction of Tonkin Highway. To ensure the proposed development does not impact on the existing infrastructure plans of Council, we would like to reiterate 2 key points. Firstly, the construction of the secondary school campus, which is our stage 1, is not anticipated to be completed before 2030 due to the scale of the development and the significant work required to plan and deliver the relocation of an existing secondary college. And secondly, our client is willing to accept a condition of the development approval to cede all land required from the school site for the roundabout to the Shire free of cost. It's obviously in our best interest for the roundabout to be constructed. We hope that the ceding of such land free of cost and the delayed commencement of construction will assist the Shire securing funding for this roundabout to ensure the construction and operation prior to the opening of the school. However, in the event the roundabout construction is delayed for whatever reason, as client is willing to work with the Shire to implement the proposed interim intersectional upgrades on Abernethy Road to ensure a safe and functional intersection as outlined in our recommended conditions. With regard to the footpath to Byford, as outlined in the Planning Officer's report, we acknowledge the subject site does not have a pedestrian footpath to Byford, as the Oakford locality is rural and characterised by larger special rural land holdings, as opposed to schools and residential areas typically covered by WAPC's Operational Policy 2.4. When considering potential pedestrian movements by residents in the Byford urban area catchment, and particularly for our student safety at opening, our client is willing to accept a condition of development approval to construct a footpath along Abernethy Road to Byford, which will also serve the residents of Oakford. In summary, the concerns raised by the planning officers with respect The recommendation for refusal can be appropriately addressed through conditions of development approval. We therefore respectfully request that the council move to support the officer's alternate recommendation for approval, subject to a number of modifications as previously circulated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. I now ask Mr. Paul Spearing regarding item 10.1.3, proposed educational establishment at lot 218 Abernethy Road, Oakford, to come forward.
I'm here the rest of my good evening, everyone. Apologies for my nervousness. I'm not used to presenting in front of people, so please bear with me. And if I do something wrong, please let me know, and I'll try and rectify that. Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk on this proposal, and I thank the previous deputations as well for putting their side of the argument ahead too. Good evening, Mr. President, elected councillors, Shire staff and members of the public. The 60+ strong group on whose behalf I am speaking tonight, thank you for the opportunity to present our case in support of the Planning Department's report to refuse this application. We also thank the Shire officers for listening to the concerns raised by the residents, taking them into consideration in their report. I'd also like to congratulate the new councillors on being elected to council and the new president and deputy president on their promotions within council. It's an exciting new phase for the Shire with fresh eyes and new blood on board, and I hope that existing opportunities remain and new ones are developed to take ratepayers and residents on this journey with you. Now on to the matter at hand. What are the three most important things in real estate? Anyone? Location, 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 isn't it? Well, actually, there's a fourth, and that's money. Let's tackle money first, then we can move on to the other three. The applicants for this proposal run their charitable, not-for-profit organisations like businesses. From an economic perspective, it makes perfect sense to consolidate resources and bring down costs. At least two schools will be closed, the first in Armidale and then the second in Byford, in order to bring about these efficiencies. One of the paper-thin arguments in the proposal is that this school will improve employment opportunities. But with the only Free Reform Schools Association school in the Shire having to close, then at best it's neutral. Consolidation will inevitably mean that not all of the positions currently available at their Byford school will be carried over with this potential new one. It would be a fair argument to make that there will be less employment opportunities than there are currently for this small segment of the Shire population. I note in the Responsible Authority report that an alternative outcome is presented if either the council or MODAP choose to approve this application. I'll come to those conditions later, but I would like to say at this point that I don't believe the financial impost of these conditions alone will be enough to prevent this proposal from proceeding. The Free Reform School Association and its parent organisation, the Free Reform Church of Australia, are financially successful businesses. Between them, they hold approximately 60 million in cash and assets, and the Schools Association alone has made a operating surplus of at least 1 million per year, each year over the last 3 years, including during COVID. So they'll just write a cheque, as was demonstrated previously. They'll use part of their 13 million in funding they get from federal and state governments every year and walk all over the ratepayers and the council. While we're on the topic of money, as a not-for-profit charitable organisation, these organisations don't pay tax or rates. The rates currently being paid for this property will be forfeited under this proposal. Approving this development will ensure that the 98.5%, which is from the 2021 census, of the Shire who are unable to use these highly exclusive facilities will pay for them for decades to come. It's not just the net loss of rates, not just the raw cost to make infrastructure upgrades out of cycle, and it's not just having to divert funds to maintain and repair things before their time. There is also an opportunity cost that needs to be factored in here. In a reality with finite resources like the Shire's, choices have to be made. If the proposal is supported, and the vast majority of the Shire population will foot the bill. The promises of lower rates will fall at the first hurdle. What was the next part of that? The important things is location. It was location. There it is. I stuffed myself up there. My apologies. If you were to believe the applicant's proposal document, you think that the area is all set for a massive reinvention. As they claim that, the locality is most appropriately characterised as an area under transition. That is fundamentally incorrect. The metropolitan region scheme listed as rural. Current and previous Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale local planning scheme listed as rural. Even the Perth and Peel at 3.5 million frameworks listed as rural. A reasonable person would find it difficult to argue that the site is anything but rural. Therefore, all of the requirements of development in the rural zone must apply. At best, the characterisation suggested in the proposal is a misreading of the planning documents. At worst, it may be devious and indicative of a pattern of behaviour not done in good faith. Further muddying of the water comes about with incorrect labelling of an approved development on the corner of Thomas and Calgary Roads. On page 7 of their proposal document, they claim that a service station has been approved in that location. In actual fact, it's a roadhouse. It may seem just like semantics, but in a planning environment, it makes all the difference. In a rural zone, a roadhouse can be a discretionary use on the local planning scheme, but a surface station is not permitted at all. I'm not an expert in this area. Our elected councillors aren't experts in this area, but those presenting this proposal are. And I can't help but feel these potential misreadings, mislabellings and mischaracterisations are a deliberate attempt to minimise the rural values of this area to their own advantage. Another example of this pattern of behaviour is that despite adamant claims that they are only planning on having a school there, there is ample evidence to suggest otherwise. Here are some relevant quotes from their 2040 vision document that show their intention. And I quote, "Planning for future and existing school campuses has always provided opportunity for the FRSA to collaborate with other organisations within the free reform churches, multi-purpose or co-locate planned infrastructure that serves the broader needs of the free reform church members. Such collaborative activity will be further facilitated at all FRSA campuses, including any newly planned campuses." Continue, "Developing a new campus allows the FRSA to work in collaboration with other FRCA organisations to leverage planned infrastructure to serve the broader needs of the FRCA. It could be possible that specific facilities to support other FRCA organisations could be co-located on the new site. It would be possible to develop a master plan that includes a multi-purpose venue that could operate as a church building on Sundays, performance venue during the week, and a community hall graduation venue, lecture theatre during the weeknights. The FRSA could partner with other church organisations to explore potentially mutual beneficial infrastructure opportunities. Such partnerships could be developed over time and would be renewed on their individual merits. That is sneaky at best and deceptive conduct at worst. The regulatory framework surrounding rural land is very strong with quite firm language used, particularly in protecting it from inappropriate development. For example, on page 66 of the Perth and Peel at 3.5 million, it states, "The increasing importance of agricultural land within the Perth and Peel regions is recognised and it is acknowledged that this land should not, repeat, should not be regarded as urban or industrial land in waiting." And there is a presumption against the development and or subdivision of rural land in the Perth and Peel regions, which is inconsistent with the state planning policy on rural planning. And then to reinforce those statements on the following page, for our South Metropolitan Peel sub-region, it says that the key priority is to preserve rural land in close proximity to major population centres. Our very own SJ Shire local planning strategy is just as protective of our rural lands. For example, on page 28, the preservation of environmental and landscape values is an integral element of maintaining high quality rural living areas, which characterise the rural character and amenity that is important to the Shire's community. Rural land, including both agricultural and natural areas, are central to the local economy, lifestyle opportunities and character of the Shire. It is important that rural land is preserved for this purpose and is not consumed by the encroachment of inappropriate activities or suburban expansion. Preserving the natural landscape is also an important function of the rural land use category to maintain rural character. As you can see, the language used is consistently robust. On page 35 of that same document, there's a section titled Protecting Agricultural Land, with a key objective to manage urban growth boundaries. The strategies to do this, such as preventing fragmentation of large rural lots and further subdivision or development in rural areas. Immediately following that section is one titled Protecting Agricultural Land, protecting the rural landscape, and it is just as direct in its language. Stated objectives include to preserve and enhance the existing rural character and amenity within rural areas and protect the rural landscape, environmental values and connections to nature. None of those 5 objectives mention anything about allowing schools to be built in there. In fact, a listed strategy under this section is to prevent the intrusion of sensitive land uses. Now, schools are considered sensitive land uses and other incompatible land uses into rural areas. Now, if you thought that was as plain as the nose on my face, then you should hear the next bit. In that same document, it really comes to its point. Rural land in peri-urban locations like Serpentine Jarrahdale is under constant threat from urban and other intensive forms of development. Encroachment of urban and non-rural development into rural areas reduces the availability of rural land for legitimate rural activities and threatens the viability of rural activities that may be incompatible with more intensive and sensitive development that comes with urban development. It is critical that the landscape, environmental and indeed economic values of rural land be recognised and protected. Unless there is a clear message that further encroachment of urban development, further fragmentation of land zone rule for non-productive purposes will not be contemplated, there's likely to be speculation and pressure for further rezoning. The highly valued rural character of the Shire will be severely compromised, if not destroyed, if urban development is permitted to continually sprawl outwards. Then lists several of these pressures. There's one that's very specific to this. 4th point down says pressure for non-rural activities to locate on rural zoned land, in brackets, private schools, due to the unavailability of suitable and or affordable land in urban locations. It's almost as if this bit was specifically written for this occasion, unless there is a clear message. If those who drafted this LPS are searching for this clear message, then look no further. Now, the proponents of this potential school tend to gloss over these things. In their documents, they say the proposal has been considered against and found to be consistent with the intent and objectives of the city's local planning scheme. A bit of a nasty little copy and paste, that, isn't it? Shire, not city. Was it really considered against and found to be consistent with the intent and objectives of the Shire's local planning strategy? Was it just ticked and flicked as carelessly as the copying and pasting was done? Regardless, the council tonight has the opportunity to send that clear message, not just to the local community that you will have their backs to protect what you say you want to protect, but also to the powers that be in the state government departments, the Shire officers and the council are all in agreement that the landscape, environmental, indeed economic values of rural land be recognised and protected. Benefit to the community. So where is the benefit to the local community? Has a benefit analysis been taken place? I haven't seen one. There may be one around. On page 9 of the Responsible Authority report, planning officers consider this proposal has a potential benefit to a potential portion of the local community and may provide a degree of benefit. They don't quantify any of those statements. The stats speak for themselves, and as I'll demonstrate below, this proposal will only benefit a tiny fragment of the SJ Shire population, the vast majority paying for it for years to come. The majority of the members of the Free Reformed Church, and therefore the only potential clients of this new school, live outside the SJ Shire. Census data from 2021 showed that only 487 of the 2,154 members of this church lived in the Shire in 2021. The last three editions show that church membership in the state has fallen from 2,000, just under 2,500 to just over 2,100. It did rise slightly in the Shire, backing up what the previous speakers have said, but in that same time, the SJ Shire population rose from 14,000 to just over 32,000. The church population as a percentage of the entire SJ Shire population fell from 2.36% down to 1.51% across those 10 years. Now, there is some discrepancy over the exact numbers of the members of the church. Data from their latest sign-on in 2021 suggests membership of approximately 2,800, whereas their 2040 vision document blows it out to 3,692. Census data, which shows membership at 2,154 in 2021, is the only measurement of the three that can be independently verified. It is most likely an underrepresentation as not everyone fills out the census correctly. In terms of school enrolments and school-aged children, there's also a similar disparity between what is reported to and verified by a third party and what is published in their own internal documents. Despite the claim that enrolments have grown by an average of 4.2%, data collected from the My School website paints a very different picture. Since 2014, the earliest year I could get that data, enrolments have only grown by 9% or 1% a year. And of the 90 additional enrolments in that time, only 20 are in the metro area. 70 are split between Albany and Capel. The 2040 vision document over-reports enrolment numbers when compared to the My School data, a total of 65 additional enrolments. I'm not sure the reason for this. It could be a bookkeeping error, or it could be something where more enrolments means more funding. The census data, however, shows a decline over the last 10 years in the 0 to 19 age church membership population, both in the state and the SJ Shire, down from just over 1,100 to 833. And in the Shire from 229 to 212. That is compared to the growth in the general SJ Shire population, which has almost doubled from 5,500, just under 10,000. As a result, the school-age population has fallen from 4.2% to 2.1%. Very small numbers. Now, I understand that small groups within a larger community should not be ignored and should not miss out. But why should those who have made significant financial investment and lifestyle decisions based on available information, which included there being no school until the letter arrived on August 25th, 2023, be cast aside because the FRSA wants to save money by consolidating their assets and cutting jobs? Does any potential benefit to a potential portion of the local community outweigh the cost that will be borne by that 98.5% of the Shire's population that we locked out of those facilities? Regardless of how you read and interpret the stats, the church population in the Shire is small, and the data show that as a proportion, the SJ Shire population is dropping. So again, I ask, where is benefit to the local community? When councils make major planning decisions, it must be made in the best interest of all, not just some. In a situation like this, where there are competing interests, invariably there has to be a winner and a loser. But in a situation like this, winning and losing are going to mean different things depending on which side you're on. For the proponent, losing simply means taking their cookie-cutter plans and putting them in somewhere else, hopefully more suitable location. Come to that later. But for the residents, losing this will fundamentally change their RMI lives. When given the opportunity to provide feedback on this proposal, the numbers are clear. 44 of the 63 valid submissions made during the submission period objected to or raised concerns with the proposal. This is despite the mail-out zone of 500 metres not capturing many of the local residents due to the lower density of the rural residential area. The snail mail also took a week off, that 3-week period. And then there was a pure volume of material that had to be read through in order to make an informed decision. Along with those submissions, there are also the 65 members of the group I am representing tonight and the 49 signatories on the petition. I have some other thoughts on petitions and moving towards electronic versions rather than paper versions. But I'll leave that for another time. I'll return to the central theme and ask, where is the benefit to the community? All right. Within the group I represent, when I asked if they would have bought or built in this part of Oakford if they were made aware that a massive school was going to be built over the road, they all said no, self included. You know why? Because the place we call home now would not exist if a future school was planned there. How many of you guys remember the movie Castle? Castle, pretty good movie. I think it's 26 years old now. But I'm not going to go into all the constitutional stuff and property rights. They're a bit of a different beast. No one is having their land compulsory acquired. I'm not going to go into that David versus Goliath theme. It's a bit more subtle than that. It's the vibe of the thing. What is a vibe and why is it important right now? Well, the vibe that I'm talking about is something you can't really measure, something you can't put your finger on. You can feel it, sense it, and you intrinsically know that it has a certain special quality. Those of us that live in the Shire, hopefully that's most of us behind here, we all know how special it is. From the hills to the flats, from the forest to the fields, it doesn't matter where you are within our fantastic Shire, you can feel the vibe. Each little enclave has its own flavour, which is slightly different from the next, but it's there. There is a vibe to the community immediately adjacent to the proposed site. Being immersed in it, I don't always appreciate it, but when I have friends or family swing by, I'm reminded of how special it actually is. When my visitors point out how awesome it is to have birds playing in the sprinklers or horses neighing with impeccable timing as you enjoy a quiet moment looking off into space, things I've started to take for granted spark joy in me again. Even the cows complaining that they are 5 minutes late to be milked makes me smile and reflect on how truly exceptional a piece of the world really is. For 30 consecutive years, immediately prior to moving out where I live in Oakford, I lived either on the same road as the school or within 200 metres of one. I know exactly what it is like to live near a school. It is one of the main reasons I decided to build my life, my house, and my home here, was to get away from that. My parents deliberately bought a house in close proximity to a planned school in the early 80s, several years before it was built. It was a known thing, and it formed the central focal point of a very well-planned development, and residents were able to make informed decisions about living next to a school prior to it being built. That is in stark contrast to this proposal. Although the school would appear to be nicely designed with all the right colours and trees, eventually masking the buildings from the outside world, it is still a bloody big school. It will destroy the vibe that the local residents currently enjoy, and in its wake will come something that is greatly diminished. The Shire officers have hit the nail on the head when they say scale and degree of development is considered to pose serious amenity impacts on nearby properties, which may not be capable of moderation. To their credit, the proponents claim that the development will be appropriately serviced, in brackets, to preserve the amenity of the locality. Okay, how are they going to do it? Let's look at fencing, for example. In the rural zone, the local planning scheme says, local boundary fencing shall be 80% visually permeable to a maximum height of 1.2 metres. Goes on to say the fencing shall be unobtrusive and sensitive to the objective of maintaining rural character and visual amenity. Their response essentially said nuts to that, instead offering black garrison fencing to a height of 2.4 metres. Right. And they've still given themselves a big fat tick. Check it out, it's on page 48. But the Shire's office report is very thorough, it goes into a lot of detail. So I'm not going to rehash all of that. There is something glaring that both the proponent and the Shire officers have missed here. It relates to the State Operational Policy 2.4, planning for school sites. Even though the Department of Education didn't raise an objection to the proposal, the Shire officers picked up on the fact that this proposal doesn't meet certain criteria, such as provision of pedestrian infrastructure. That is well explained. However, in all of the concern, and the totally valid concern regarding the intersection of Cargoach and Abernathy and how traffic will flow or not, very simple elements of this operational policy has been overlooked. Under the section titled Movement Network and Road Safety, it stated that all new school sites must be designed with at least 3 road frontages. Cul-de-sacs or laneways are not acceptable roads adjacent to school sites. How many road frontages does this proposal have? It's got 2. Is that more than 3? No. Even though there's confusion in road hierarchy categories, it doesn't take away from the fact that this proposal doesn't meet that requirement. The Department of Education has previously raised concerns with the road frontages in the Shire. We only have to look back to June this year, where Council unanimously agreed with the Shire officer to recommend refusal of the proposed structure plan for Lot 33 in Hopkinson Road. A major part of that recommendation was because of the failure of the proposal to meet those requirements for the two schools in that plan. The proponent awkwardly dances around the topic by claiming that an internal ring road is sufficient, but it's not. And it still gives itself a big tick. Take a bit of a step back here. We know that Council isn't the final decision maker in this instance. If we go to MODAP, or the Council will get to make a recommendation to the panel.
Sorry, Mr. Spearing, under standing orders, you only got 15 minutes for deputation. I can ask Councillor there in agreement to extend your time. How much longer do you think you need?
Probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. Can I have someone to move that we increase the time for Mr. Spearing for another 2 minutes?
I'll move that Mr. Spearing speak for a few more minutes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. So moved by, seconded by Councillor Dunn. Anyone opposed? Thank you. You've got 2 more minutes. Thank you, Mr. Spearing. Thank you.
I'll refer quickly to a relevant State Administrative Tribunal hearing from 2017, where it was a very similar enough consideration in Darling Downs. It was for a church, not a school. Now, the tribunal was not satisfied that mere compliance with the environmental protection, the noise regulations was sufficient. In this instance, to mitigate the adverse impacts of noise emissions from the proposed development on the existing amenity of the locality. It also didn't consider the proposed development to be consistent with the objectives of the planning framework, as the proposed development would adversely impact on the residential living and equine character of the residential and stable policy area, and therefore, in the interest of orderly and proper planning, declined to exercise discretion to approve the proposed development. They also said compliance with the noise regulations does not necessarily mean that noise does not constitute an adverse impact on the existing amenity of the locality. They then finished by saying the place of public worship will adversely impact on the existing amenity and character of the locality, and is therefore incompatible. What would the tribunal find if you transpose this across a massive school for 1,200 students, where the noise generated will be more often and for much longer than a small church? There are many available areas in which to build a school of this size. In the Shire, we've got Mundajong, Whitby, and even that lot that I referred to on Hopkinson Road is currently under urban, I'm not sure of the term, urban expansion, I think the term is, something along those lines. So there are areas that can be used. And
sorry, Mr. Spearing, that's 2 minutes up. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your deputation. I would now like to ask Mr. Andrew Bett from Wellstrand Proprietary Limited regarding item 10.1.8, proposed Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment, Lot 30, Soldiers Road, Cardup. Request for comment to please come forward. Thank you, Ms. Brazier.
Good evening, councillors. Lisa Brazier, and I'm here tonight representing Wellstrand Pty Ltd to deliver a deputation in relationship to item 10.1.8, proposed Metropolitan Regional Scheme Amendment, Lot 30 Soldiers Road, Cardup. Request for comment on tonight's OCM agenda. Lot 103 Bishop Road, Cardup, owned by Wellstrand Pty Ltd, is part of the same planning precinct as the adjoining Lot 30 Soldiers Road, where both parcels of land were simultaneously earmarked for urbanisation as part of the Peel and Perth 3.5 planning investigation area outcomes, and subsequently was included as urban in the updated Mundajong District Structure Plan. The purpose of this deputation tonight is to request Council to consider Lot 103 Bishop Road, Cardup to be added to the current officer's recommendation. This deputation is to demonstrate that there are no planning, environmental, servicing or other constraints preventing Lot 103 to remain joined with Lot 30 in the planning process towards urbanisation. This deputation will further demonstrate that there are sound planning grounds to rezone the structure plan of both parcels of land, being Lot 103 and Lot 30 simultaneously. Lot 103 and Lot 30 are highlighted on the Landgate aerial photo Castell overlay, which is in your documentation. This deputation is formed from our submission lodged with the WAPC to request that the scheme amendment 1406/57 be amended to include Lot 103 Bishop Road Cardup as part of the urban zone under the MRS, and we provided the following compelling reasons in support of this request. 1. Lot 103 is cleared of remnant vegetation given the previous and current agricultural land uses. It is not known to have any threatened ecological communities located within it and does not comprise any conservation or resource enhancement wetlands. In terms of being deconstrained in this way, Lot 103 is less constrained than the adjoining Lot 30, which is subject of the urban zoning proposal. 2. Lot 30, which is subject to the current amendment, as well as Lot 103, are both identified as urban expansion with long-term, beyond 2031 staging timeframe in the Perth Peel Planning Framework. In respect of the amendmented area, Lot 30, it has been determined that this land can be provided with appropriate services and be developed without adversely impacting upon other urban zoned land within the locality. This is equally applicable for adjoining Lot 103. Lot 30, which is the subject of the urban rezoning proposal, contains some area of remnant vegetation which may provide habitat for threatened black cockatoo species. Further, this land is also partly affected by the Bush Forever Area 350. The adjoining Lot 103 Bishop Road does not have these environmental constraints. A structure plan and local water management strategy will be required over Lot 30 in order to demonstrate intra alia that future developments will not have significant adverse impacts on the environment values of the land. Particularly in relation to water management, planning over both land parcels simultaneously will provide greater confidence and improved designed opportunities to satisfy this requirement in an optimal planned manner. 5. The district water management strategy prepared in relation to Lot 30 and considered acceptable by the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation also applies to a larger district that includes Lot 103. 6. The scheme amendment proposal relating to Lot 30 states that the amendment is consistent with SPP 3.0, Urban Growth and Settlement, given that the proposed urban zoning will facilitate the development of suitably serviced land in a location that is suitable for residential land uses. This applies in equal measure to our adjoining Lot 103. 7. The amendment proposing to rezone Lot 30 is consistent with SPP 3.7, planning in bushfire-prone area. Given that a bushfire management plan was prepared in support, which adequately demonstrates that compliance with the bushfire protection criteria can be achieved in subsequent planning stages, the adjoining Lot 103 is even less constrained with vegetation and has the same locational and landform attributes as Lot 30. Accordingly, compliance with bushfire protection criteria can be achieved in subsequent planning stages for both parcels of land. 8. The amendment that seeks to rezone Lot 30 refers to nearby industrial land uses in Cardup, stating that these industrial land uses are not likely to generate the impacts on the future urban uses within the amendment area, which cannot be appropriately mitigated in subsequent planning stages. Lot 103 is located on the western side of Lot 30, further away from the Cardup industrial area and land uses. And accordingly, these industrial land uses are even less likely to generate impacts over Lot 103. 9. In relation to road and rail noise, the noise exposure forecast was undertaken for the amended area demonstrating that any future sensitive land uses in the amendment area would be capable of achieving compliance and recommendations of SPP 5.4. This level of compliance would also apply equally to Lot 103, given it has the same distance to the same railway line as Lot 30. 10. Both Lot 30 and Lot 103 have simultaneously been included in the Mundijong District Structure Plan, with both lots forming a new urban precinct north of Bishop Road. 11. In terms of planning for regional roads and railway crossings, etc., it would represent orderly, proper planning for the entire urban precinct of North Bishop Road, namely lots 30 and 103, to be structure planned together. Water and wastewater solutions are the same for both land parcels that have been earmarked for urbanisation on the north side of Bishop Road, with Lot 103 being in closer proximity to the planned wastewater pumping station. 13. Both Lot 30 and Lot 103 are located are not located within or adjoining an existing Aboriginal heritage site. It is also acknowledged that further consideration of Aboriginal heritage culture would be addressed more specifically at later stages of the planning process, typically at the stage of local structure planning or subdivision stage. In summary, there are clearly no constraints that would prevent Lot 103 Bishop Road Cardup from being progressed for urban zoning simultaneously with Lot 30 Soldiers Road. Indeed, there are compelling planning reasons to support this, as it has been outlined in detail in the rationale in this deputation. In the event that procedural protocol means a modified amendment is needed to be referred to the EPA and re-advertised, this will only slightly delay the current amendment, in contrast to the perspective of commencing a new process for Lot 103. On the basis of the above supporting evidence and rationale, Wellstrand Pty Ltd, as the landowner of Lot 103 Bishop Road Cardup, respectfully requests that Council considers amending the current officer's motion to recommend that the WAPC modify the current scheme amendments by including Lot 103 with Lot 30 within the urban zone under the MRS. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brazier. That concludes deputations. Item 5 on the agenda is President's Report. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for November. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the great work of our outgoing councillors, being Michelle Rich, Dave Atwell, who are both here tonight, and Lauren Strange, for your years of dedication to the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. It takes time, passion and commitment to be elected member. And I want to thank you all, especially for our past Shire President Michelle Rich and Vice President Dave Atwell, as I said, who are here tonight, for their efforts during their time on council. I feel very proud to be the first directly elected president for the Shire. It really is a humbling experience, and I'm more committed than ever before to making the Shire the best place to live, to work and to play. I'd also like to acknowledge and congratulate councillors Rhys Jarrett and also Councillor Nathan Bishop on their successful elections. Community is the heart of everything we do, and I'd like to wish the SJ Farmers Market a very happy 3rd birthday. Each Saturday, the area outside the Civic Centre comes alive with community spirit, people wandering and grabbing their farm fresh produce and chatting to each other over a cup of coffee. It's a great initiative, and I thank Alyssa and the team from the Food and Farm Alliance for bringing our community together each week. Speaking of the markets, elected members will be visiting the SJ Farmers Markets on the last Saturday of each month to allow our community to chat with the council. This is a great opportunity for grassroots engagement, allowing us to get a greater understanding of the needs and wants of our residents. Last weekend, I was fortunate enough to represent the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale at the Remembrance Day service. It was run by the Serpentine Jarrahdale RSL. It's always important for us to stop and reflect on the sacrifices of our past and present service men and women. And I was proud to do this on behalf of the Shire. I was also fortunate enough to catch up with the Jarrahdale Community Collective, our COA's Community Relations Advisor, and Councillors Jarrett and Duggan to celebrate the imminent Stage 1 works to create the Jarrahdale Outdoor Hub. This new hub will help activate one of the main community access spaces in Jarrahdale, creating a welcome space for locals to enjoy. Funding breakdown is $50,000 from the Shire, $30,000 from Department of Local Government, Sports and Cultural Industries, or interests, and $60,000 from Alcoa and the JCC. The Jarrahdale Community Collective have also secured additional $37,000 from Alcoa. Turning to our events calendar, we've commenced our community barbecue series, kicking off with our outdoor Oakford barbecue a couple of weeks ago. Next cab off the rank is Keysbrook on the 30th of November, so please be sure to head down, grab a snag and have a chat. Before you had time to blink, it's time to untangle the tinsel and dust off the Christmas decorations. Last week, the Shire launched the 2023 Christmas Lights competition, proudly sponsored by the Byford District's Community Bank. So if Christmas lights are your thing, register your interest before the 4th of December to be in the running for $3,750 worth of prizes. A large part of what makes our Shire so special is your gorgeous background of the Darling Scarp and the wide open spaces. However, with our bushland comes with its very own set of challenges, none more so than the threat of fire. I want to offer a massive thank you to our 7 volunteer fire brigades and our 200 volunteer and career firefighters who fought the recent fires so tirelessly to protect homes, lives and livestock. Your efforts are appreciated more than you know, and your courage is inspiring. Thank you, and I look forward with anticipation to the next 4 years and creating something special with you all. I will now ask Freeman of the Shire, Jan Starr AM, to come forward and make a presentation on behalf of Council to the immediate past President. Thank you, Jan.
Richard, not receiving. Anyhow, thank you. I've been asked to acknowledge Michelle Richard's contribution to the Shire, and thank you for doing that. This I was glad to do as my faith in the Estate Council was gradually restored after Michelle Richard took over as President following a period I call the Dark Ages. When you become a councillor, there's a sharp learning curve, and this happened to them when you become President, of course. With the help of 2 very good CEOs and their staff, Michelle learned quickly and was able to contribute much to the community. Being an effective president means knowing your role in working with the CEO, knowing your community, having commitment, and hopefully having a council that works as a team. It requires thinking strategically, and this means dealing with external bodies. Michelle worked hard to re-establish the Shire's reputation in the local government world and with regional bodies. A reputation that I hope will continue to be upheld. Local government also will take all that you are prepared to give it. So the Shire was fortunate to have Michelle, who gave her all to serve her community. On behalf of the council, would you please accept? Thank you.
Certainly.
I'd like to thank Freeman Jan Starr of the Shire for the presentation this evening. It is very humbling and an honour to have served as a Shire President for 6 years and a Shire Councillor for 8 years. In that time, it is not about councillors. It is not about the individuals, it is about our community. And in that time, our community has worked exceptionally hard together to get to where we are today. Through the leadership of the directors of planning that we've had in the Shire, through Andre Schonfold and then Andrew Trossick, we were able to put in place a new town planning scheme number 3 that was 35 years in the making, which incorporated our rural strategy, which was extremely important to all of our community. Fraser, I know that when you first came here, you must have sat in your office and said, oh my God, what have I done? The leaps and bounds that we have made in the technology area and in the reporting area, and how we have actually got to a stage where our departments work crossways instead of in silos, has been an absolutely magnificent thing to see. Reza, you were employed as a road builder, and we have lots of roads to build, and you are doing a fantastic job in that space. Brian, community engagement, it can only ever keep improving. Dr. Kenneth Parker, you have frustrated the absolute hell out of me on many occasions, but your knowledge in governance is unsurpassed anywhere in the local government sector, not just in WA, but across the country. Paul, you came into SJ when we were in sense of turmoil. You have led this organisation with integrity, at times through very, very difficult circumstances. And I thank you very much for that. To the councillors I have served with, we have not always agreed, but we have made some great decisions for our community. The first budget that I sat through as the Shire President, we had roughly $4 million in our capital works program. The last budget, which is the one we are in now, it's around the $9 million mark. When you take into consideration the forward estimates that we also have that aren't reported in those budgets, we have had an increase in our capital works programs of somewhere in the vicinity of 2,000%. Congratulations to the organisation, who have done a tremendous job. As I said, it is about community, it is not about us as individuals. None of this would have been possible without the input from our various communities when they were asked to help and tell us what they would like to see and how they would like to see it done. We have followed what our community have told us over the 8 years that I've been on council. We have been honest with our community, although there is small segments that would differ to agree. I think for anybody that sits outside local government, it is sometimes very hard to understand the processes and the constraints that local government work under. It is ruled by legislation from the state government, and at times we don't always agree with it, but when we don't agree with it, all we can do is fight to have the rules changed so that they work better for our communities. As I said, I am humbled and honoured to have served as a Shire President and Councillor. Serpentine Jarrahdale is and will continue to be my home, and I will continue to serve my community in other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeman of the City, Jan Star AM, and thank you, Michelle, for those very special words. Item number 6 on the agenda is declaration of elected members and officers' interests. Myself, President Coles, declared a proximity interest in item 10.1.8, proposed Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment, Lot 30, Soldiers Road, Cardup. Request for comment, PA 22-538. The nature of the interest is I am a board member of the Cork Grammar School. The extent of the interest is a proximity interest. I will leave the meeting while this item is discussed. There is another disclosure of elected member interest, and that is from Councillor Rhys Jarrett. He wishes to declare an interest in agenda item 10.2.9, being considered by Council this evening on the 20th of November 2023. The nature of the interest is impartiality interest. The nature of the interest is Councillor Jarrett is currently being on the board of Serpentine Jarrahdale Food and Farm Alliance, of which they have previously put a tender in for the site pertaining to item 10.2.9. The extent of his interest is being a member of the SJ Food and Farm Alliance Board, who put a tender in for the site in 2019. Councillor Jarrett will remain within the chamber while that matter is discussed. That brings us to item number 7 on the agenda, which is confirmation of minutes from previous council meetings. 7.1 is ordinary council meeting 16th of October 2023. Do I have a councillor who'd like to move the minutes from that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there someone who would second the minutes from the meeting of the 16th of October? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. There being no one opposed, the motion is passed unanimously. Item 7.2 is the swearing-in ceremony special council meeting of the 30th of October 2023. Can I please have a mover for the minutes of that meeting to be confirmed? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there anyone opposed? Thank you. That matter is passed unanimously. That brings us to item 7.3 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the special council meeting 6th of November 2023, and that is that the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 6th of November 2023 be confirmed. Do I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Anyone opposed? Thank you. That matter is passed unanimously. Agenda item number 8 is the receipt of minutes or reports of consideration of adoption of recommendations from committees held since the previous council meeting. There are nil. That brings us to agenda item 9, which is motions of notice which have been given. 9.1 is a motion of notice that I submitted, being President Coles. The motion, as per the screen, is the council requests the Chief Executive Officer to arrange a Christmas sundowner for community groups in the Shire with the following details. And the details are output up as per the screen. So the date being the 20th of December at the Byford Districts Country Club. The intent being 2 representatives from each community group from the Shire's community group database, be from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. The Shire will provide finger food, coffee, tea, soft drink and water only. No alcohol will be provided by the Shire, but a cash bar is available for attendees to purchase their own drinks, and the cost will be charged to GL code 4300157112. I am happy to move that motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is anyone opposed? Thank you. That motion is passed unanimously.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Just before we proceed, could I seek some guidance in relation to item 7.1, being the ordinary council meeting that I've seconded? Is there any issue given I was not present at that meeting?
I don't believe there is an issue. I will, no, there's no issue. Thank you for the question, Councillor Bishop. That brings us to item 10 on the agenda, which is Chief Executive Officer reports. And I'll just take a moment now to explain what we're doing tonight, and that is en bloc. So as part of the Shire's efforts to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of meetings, tonight's meeting will include the opportunity for matters to be considered by Council en bloc. Matters not to be included in en bloc decisions are those which require absolute majority. matters to be determined behind closed doors, declared interests made in relation to the item, and deputations or statements made in relation to the item. Before commencing the process, the presiding member, which is myself, will provide a brief explanation of the en bloc method, which I've done now. What I will now do is go through each item on the agenda that we are going to suggest we move on block. So the first item will be 10.1.4, proposed road naming application, Dolly Road, Byford. 10.1.6, retrospective development application for motor vehicle repair at 54 Walters Road, Byford. 10.1.7, amendment to local planning policy. 1.5, exempt development relating to container deposit scheme infrastructure. 10.1.10, draft local planning policy 2.8. 10.1.11, proposed funding offer for accessibility upgrades to South Western Highway, Byford. 10.1.12, Byford Train Station Town Centre Parking Management. 10.2.1, minutes of the Rivers Regional Council meeting on the 19th of October 2023. 10.2.2 is the award request for tender RFT 062023, provision of electrical services. 10.2.3, award request for tender RFT 07-2023, which is provision of plumbing services. 10.2.4, award request for tender RFT 08-2023, provision of minor building maintenance services. 10.2.5, which is award request for tender RFT 0923, supply of irrigation pipes, sprinklers and fittings. 10.2.7, road closure, unnamed road reserve Keysbrook. 10.2.8, which is council to consent to dedication of unallotted Crown land to road reserve intersection of Cargottich Road and Abernethy Road. 10.2.9, notice of intention to dispose of property at 1 Evelyn Street, Munajong Sale Yards. 10.3.1, confirmation of payment of creditors October 2023. 10.3.2, monthly financial report September 2023. And 10.3.5, council policy review, alcohol consumption, civic dinner, farmland concession, flags and Christmas closure. Is there a council that is happy to move all those items on block?
Mr. President, before we do that, can I just ask that 10.2.9 be removed for consideration of en bloc, because Councillor Jarrett has declared a impartiality interest since this table was put together. So if that item comes out, which is in accordance with those criteria that we suggested.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. CEO. I'm happy for that. So as read, except the removal of 10.2.9, which is a notice of intention to dispose of property at 1 Evelyn Street, Munajong. Is there a councillor that's happy to move those items on block? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is anyone opposed? No one opposed. Those items will all be moved on block unanimously. That brings us to 10.1, Development Services Reports. 10.1.1, Proposed Extension of Extraction Timeframe and Amendment to Approved Area of Extracting for Mining Operations, which is Lot 63, 1265 Hopeland Road, Keysbrook. Is there a councillor who's happy to move the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is anyone opposed to this item? Item is passed unanimously. That brings us to item 10.1.2, proposed recreation private gym and swim school and shop at Lot 2, 640 South Western Highway, Byford. And I do note that there is a alternate officer recommendation that has been circulated. Is there a council who'd like to move the alternate officer recommendation or the original officer recommendation?
Maybe, Mr. President, I can just point out for the members of the public gallery, the alternative officer recommendation includes a point number 12, which applies to public art. Public art was referred to in the report, but was not actually a condition there. So the alternative officer recommendation just adds a point 12 to that for council's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. CEO, and that should be on the screen at paragraph number 12. Is there a council like to move
Mr. President, before we move, am I able to ask some additional information on this item, please?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Just following our deputation that was made earlier, I'm just wondering if we could get an update on condition 11, please.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Director of Development Services, are you able to answer that question?
Certainly, Mr. President, and thank you for the question. So speaking with officers late this afternoon, we don't have written advice or clarity from the DWER. So that's a bit of a concern to be acting on information that we're not necessarily clear on. The DWER submission we quoted in full on page 50, and it doesn't specifically reference a concern pertaining to ground excavation. It's more about a concern pertaining to people being brought to the site, just generally. And I guess last but not least, hearing the applicant speak, if DWER are very comfortable with the situation, it is still a condition to the Shire's satisfaction based on advice of the DWER. So presuming we would get advice from the DWER saying they were comfortable, we wouldn't look at emphasising that condition. It would be dealt with relatively simply.
And a follow-on question, if I may.
Yes.
I believe that there's a time sensitivity with this going through council as far as its alignment to MODAP, is that correct?
Thank you, Director.
Thank you for the question. This is actually a non-development assessment panel application.
My apologies, I'm getting confused with something else. Thank you. I'm happy to move the motion as it stands, the alternate officer's recommendation. Thanks.
With the addition of paragraph 12.
With the addition of paragraph 12. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Anyone opposed to this item? Item is passed unanimously. That brings us to item number 10.1.3, proposed educational establishment at lot 218, 575 Abernethy Road, Oakford. Is there a council who'd like to move either option 1 or option 2, or put forward an alternative?
I'm happy to put forward the officer's recommendation, option 1. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. So that's a officer's recommendation, option number 1. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone who's opposed to this motion? The motion is passed unanimously. The next item is 10.1.4, which is being passed. So I'll move to item 10.1.5. 10.1.5 is retrospective motor vehicle repair and prospective additions, lots 234 10 Walters Road, Byford. Is there an officer like to, is there a council like to move the officer's recommendation or move an alternative?
Can I ask a question before?
Yes, you can, Councillor Mack.
Just if I could ask for the planning director, just in relation to condition G and the ability for the business to operate if somebody is putting in false complaints against the business.
Thank you, Director of Development Services.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for the question. We have council has a compliance and enforcement policy that does reference how frivolous or vexatious complaints would be triaged. On the whole, we would respond to a complaint, investigate it. So a repeat complaint which is not supported by the evidence, either sourced through our investigations or sourced, for example, through a noise meter, if it was a noise complaint, we can capture evidence pretty quickly and
accurately, and we would be able to utilise that to work out whether a complaint was being made unreasonably or reasonably, in my opinion.
And follow-up question, if I may?
Yes, you can, Councillor Mack.
So what sort of time frame would we expect that turnaround to be, which the business could potentially be closed for the investigation to be undertaken?
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. It does depend. If it's a serious sort of noise complaint that's being alleged to be repeating over time, we would probably look at trying to gather some evidence over an extended period, for example, a couple of days or 3 to 4 days. I think, in terms of the way in which the condition is read, we would want to be able to receive some pretty clear evidence about the alleged noise complaint. And there might be a process by which we go out and take some measurement to actually see if the complaint is reflected by the activities that are alleged to be causing that noise impact. So I don't believe it would be a short-term turnaround. I think it would be, well beyond a week to be able to get to the bottom of an issue and work out what the noise impact was, whether it was coming allegedly from the business or not. So there would be a delay in implementing that condition as currently read.
And one further question, if I may.
You can.
Just in regards to if that condition was removed, do you see any potential impacts on for the council with that?
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. There would still be a requirement for compliance with the noise regulations. So in the absence of the condition, we would still have powers that are currently available to us under the Environmental Protection Noise Regulations, as well as powers under the Planning and Development Act. So it wouldn't necessarily result in, well, the only difference is there would be no immediate stop to the business. The business could keep operating whilst we investigated the complaints.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with the removal of condition 8G.
Would you need to get rid of F and G or just G?
Just G. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anyone opposed to the alternate recommendation? Motion is passed unanimously.
And Councillor Mack, we will need a reason for the difference on the officer recommendation for the minutes, please. If we can help.
Thank you. It's to allow the business to operate in the event of being under investigation of a complaint against the business.
Matt, say that again for the minutes section. To allow the business to operate.
To allow the business to operate while complaints are being investigated. While noise complaints are being investigated.
Happy with that, Woody? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. 10.1.6 has been passed en bloc. 10.1.7 has been passed en bloc. That brings us to 10.1.8. 10.1.8, I've declared a proximity interest, so I'll leave the chambers and hand to the Deputy President, Councillor Duggan.
Thanks, Mr. President. 10.1.8, the proposed Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment, Lot 30, Soldiers Road, Carter, request for comment PA 22-538. Do I have a mover for the motion, please?
My apologies. If I have a question, if I may.
Certainly.
Just in relation to a statement that was made, a deputation, sorry, that was made earlier, to have a second property added to it. Do we have any insight as to the viability of that, or of even deferring this to have a further investigation?
Director.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I guess the proposal in front of us relates directly to Lot 30. Lot 30's done research and investigation to get it to the point that it's being proposed to be rezoned. The adjoining land in question is certainly shown for urban expansion opportunities. My advice would be it would be normal processes that you would undertake some studies, despite similarities, to be able to get the, in this case, getting the Planning Commission to resolve to initiate a region scheme amendment. It would be, I don't believe, a realistic proposition to ask the Commission to add in another property, because this amendment's being advertised widely, and so landowners nearby wouldn't be aware that potentially there's another 60 odd hectares being added in directly to the west. We'd certainly look forward to working with the owners to affect a proposal and assist where we can, because certainly housing affordability and housing land supply is an important issue for us at this moment. So, but I think it would be a challenge to include that land as part of this proposal.
With that in mind, Councillor Mack, are you looking at moving the officer's recommendation? Or do I have a mover for the officer's recommendation or an alternate?
Yes, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Mack. And do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there anyone against the officer's recommendation? Thank you. Vote is unanimous.
Councillor Duggan, you'll advise the President when he returns of the Council's suit.
President, there was a vote to support the officer's recommendation. It was unanimous.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. That takes us to 10.1.9, which is the Manajong District Structure Plan and Manajong Town Centre Precinct F1 Precinct Structural Plan Update. There is an alternate officer recommendation, which I think is on the screen. That's that Council notes a recent approval, subject to modifications, of the Manajong District Structure Plan by the West Australian Planning Commission, and notes the progress to be made in completing modifications using funds within the Area F1 Precinct Structure Plan project. Is there a council like to move either the officer's recommendation or the alternate officer recommendation?
I'd like to move the alternate officer's recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there anyone opposed to the alternate recommendation? The item is passed unanimously. 10.1.10 was moved en bloc. 10.1.11 was moved en bloc. 10.1.12 was moved en bloc. That brings us to 10.2.1. 10.2 is Infrastructure Services Report. 10.2.1 was also moved on block. 10.2.2 was also moved en bloc. So too was 10.2.3, 10.2.4, 10.2.5 and 10.2.6 is .2.6 appointments of councillors, the Cemeteries Advisory Group. Are there any nominations for any councillors to be included in the Cemeteries Advisory Group?
I'm happy to nominate, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Are there any councillors like to be a deputy for the Cemeteries Advisory Group?
I'll be happy to deputy.
A deputy, or I think there has to be 2 council appointees. Are you happy to be a deputy or an actual appointee?
I'd be happy to be deputy. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any councillors that would like to be a delegate to the Cemeteries Advisory Group with Councillor Duggan? I'm happy to nominate if no one else is. Okay, I'll nominate then. Is one of the other councillors happy to be the deputy?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. So currently, as the motion is, to appoint the community members 1 through to 6 inclusive, to then appoint Councillor Duggan and Councillor Mack as deputy, and then to appoint President Coles and Councillor Bishop as a deputy. Is there someone happy to move that motion?
Happy to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there someone happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Anyone opposed to those nominees? That motion is passed unanimously. 10.2.7 was moved en bloc. 10.2.8 was moved en bloc. We then move to item 10.2.9. Item 10.2.9. Item 10.2.9 is notice of intention to dispose of property at 1 Evelyn Street, Munajong Sale Yards. Is there a councillor that's happy to move the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Any councillors happy to second the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Is there anyone opposed? No one opposed. That item is passed unanimously. Item 10.2.10 is appointment of members to the Rivers Regional Council and appointment of Rivers Regional Subsidiary Deputy. Are there any nominations received, Mr. CEO?
I'm not aware of any being received to date, Mr. President.
Was there a previous one received?
Councillor Mack had previously identified it prior to the meeting, when it was last considered by council. My apologies.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Mr. Mack, are you happy to be a nominee?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there another councillor like to be nominated to be on the Rivers Regional Council?
I would like to nominate.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there anyone that would like to be a deputy for the Rivers Regional?
Happy to be deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan.
Happy to be a deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Bishop. So the motion now is for Councillor Mack and Councillor Jarrett to be the 2 elected members of the Rivers Regional Council, with Councillor Duggan and Councillor Bishop being their respective deputy members. Is there a councillor who'd like to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a councillor happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop.
Includes point 3 as well. President, just to point out, it includes point 3 as well, appoints our manager of waste and fleet.
Yes.
As well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. CEO, and thank you, Manager Governance. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Yes. The motion is passed unanimously. That brings us 10.3 corporate services reports. 10.3.1 was passed on block. 10.3.2 was passed on block. That brings us to 10.3.3. 10.3.3 September 2023 quarterly budget review. Is there a councillor happy to move this motion, the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a councillor happy to second? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Is there any councillors opposed to the motion? Motion is passed unanimously. 10.3.5 was passed on block. Sorry, 10.3.4 wasn't passed on block, so we'll go to 10.3.4. 10.3.4 is Corporate Business Plan Performance Report, July to September 2023. Is there a councillor happy to move this motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there any councillors happy to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Bishop. Anyone opposed to the motion? Thank you. The motion is passed unanimously. 10.3.5 was passed on block. That brings us to 10.3.6, which is fixing the date and method of a new ward extraordinary election.
Mr President, I'll just point out that Councillor Mack, in accordance with the standing orders, asked for some correspondence that he received from the Attorney-General, Parliamentary Secretary to the Attorney-General, Mr Honourable Matt Swinburne, MLC, to be tabled, and that's been tabled and provided to all councillors.
Thank you, Mr CEO. Are there any councillors like to move either of the options as per the agenda or any other alternate motions?
I'm happy to move option 1, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. So option 1, as per the screen. Is there a councillor happy to second option 1? That's the officer's recommendation, yes. Councillor Jarrett, are you happy to second the officer's recommendation, which is option number 1? Thank you, Councillor. Is anyone opposed to option 1 for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Duggan, would you like to open debate?
Thanks, Mr President. This has certainly been something that's a very, very difficult consideration. However, I feel that with the awareness that is now around about the invalidity election that we had, that I'm hoping that there'll be more people engaging in voting and keeping an eye out on behaviour that's seen as being disreputable. I also think that as much as I would love to support in-person voting rather than postal voting, the numbers are so low, I feel that they are easy to be swayed in that sense. So when we're trying to look at the way up of having a fair and honest election, the greater the number speaks volumes. Nowadays, residents have the ability to be on social media. They can get a pretty good idea of the of each of the people who are nominated, and they can vote easily with a postal vote. I certainly would hate to see us in a similar situation as what we had previously with the invalidity situation, but I do hope that we've all learnt from that and that we can go back to our postal voting method and get more people engaged in making the decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Councillor Jarrett, would you like to speak or reserve?
Reserve, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Councillor Mack, would you like to speak against the motion?
Thanking you. Where do I start? I'll first speak to integrity, and I'll speak to the integrity of a postal election. The reason I had the correspondence tabled was so everyone could actually see the response from the Minister's office with respect to how the investigation was conducted into the now invalid election of 2021 from the North Ward. What we did know from the court case is there was a large number of fraudulently returned ballot papers. It was the position of the Attorney General that the long-established precedent that the electoral bodies should not intervene in an election until a result is clear. The Commissioner adopts this practice and will do so into the future. And only after a result is clear and a decision can be made as to whether there have been a failure of the electoral process, and that a decision must be made on the evidence available at the time. The first part of the court case referred to a lacuna in the legislation whereby nobody actually deemed themselves the appropriate authority to investigate. I'll then go back on to the Commissioner's comments in relation to the election process in 2023 local government elections, where the Minister states he had every confidence the WAC and the Commissioner will fulfil the statutory obligations under the Local Government Act. Further, the Commissioner will take all allegations of electoral offences seriously. However, it is important to note that the Commissioner does not personally prosecute offences under the Local Government Act. It rather relies on the state government agencies to act on its behalf. And the Commissioner will only act if there is credible evidence on a prima facie basis and a likelihood of a prosecution, and such a prosecution is in the public interest. At that point, I'll point out there was no prosecution under electoral offences with relation to what happened in 2021. While the WAEC and the Commissioner can fulfil their statutory duties, unfortunately, they cannot police the behaviour of all candidates and their supporters. With some 1.7 million postal packages being sent out to electors for the October local government elections, the WAEC relies on the community to act appropriately. Now, I think that's important here, that we are relying on the community to act appropriately. We know that we have people in our community who interfered with our electoral process and were not charged. And in fact, it wasn't deemed in the public interest to pursue a prosecution. If we want to talk to the integrity of our elections, I just don't understand how we can go back to a system which has these flaws. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Duggan, would you like to close?
Thanks, Mr. President. Certainly to start, as I have always done, I commend Councillor Mack on his tenacity and his integrity to bring to light what happened ashamedly in our Shire. I would like to think that there's been lessons learned. I'd like to think that it's actually increased our community engagement, and I'd like to think that from that the outcome will be that there'll be more people involved in voting and there'll be more people keeping an eye on what's going on in their community. So for that reason, I support the motion that's put before us. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. All those in favour of the motion? 3. All those against? Motion is passed 3-2. At 10.5 executive services reports, which there are nil. 10.6 confidential reports. I ask a councillor to move a motion to close the meeting to members of the public so we can go behind closed doors and discuss a confidential item. Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jarrett. Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously.